Hi, I'm Pam Hosel, and this is the Dear Rockstar podcast and interview. I started this with the hope that we could have real conversations with people that are designing lives of purpose, passion, and meaning, who have left the traditional, if there is a traditional, path, and who are staying true to their own personal why and their passion. And so today I'm elated to get to talk to you, Maya.
Thank you.
I don't know, I can't even remember like how we connected when I came to Orlando, but I kept hearing about this woman, Maya, and I thought your name was Maya Papaya. Like, Maya Papaya, you've got to meet Maya Papaya. Maya Papaya Organic Farm, that's where we've been shooting all day. Thank you for your hospitality. It's been beautiful. Like, oh, we love this place. We want to move in.
Okay.
So,
Let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is, first of all, there's so many ways we could go at this. I mean, you have an organic farm, so there's a huge part. You also have yoga on the farm. But what I've been impressed by more than the ventures you've started or what you're working on is just kind of your heart and your purposeful vision of how you want to invest your life. So today I'm excited to get to talk to you about that. Tell us a little bit about Maya Papaya Organic Farm and your vision here, because that'll give us some context. Then we can talk about how you got started.
Okay. The vision here is, I guess it's a calling or an assignment. I had a long-term 20 or so, maybe from the time I was about 17, I started articulating to those who knew me that I wanted to have a farm. Had no idea what that meant, but I wanted to be in Costa Rica or Nicaragua and have a farm and grow cacao and hemp and have alpacas and have solar power, and a river runs through it, and it was big, and people are, so almost an intentional community that wasn't conceptualized as a business at all.
Okay, and you saw this when you were 17, 20?
17, yeah, I think so. Around that time I also traveled to Nicaragua to meet my grandmother's family and my father's family, and they have a somewhat agricultural existence in very agricultural areas.
Okay.
And I spent summers on 10 acres in North Carolina with my mother's parents, and that was idyllic, and they had like a little farmette sort of a thing going on.
Okay, so this farming experience and kind of in your DNA.
I think so. In fact, I saw a video that my father just gave me for Christmas. It's an interview that he did with my Mosquito Indian grandmother a few years before she passed. And she did not know her mother. Her mother died in childbirth, and her grandmother would come to visit her on the river, and she said she would always bring her fruits and vegetables and chickens, and one time she brought her a piglet, and that she was a tall, beautiful Indian woman, and she would always be carrying something on her head as a gift from my grandmother.
And I have been watching the chickens around here, and we have the alpacas back there. We've got some shots of those.
Yes.
And your organic farm. So it's so interesting to think that vision was inside of you at 17.
Yeah, maybe not so directly, or still trying to figure out, the way of the world. On that same trip, I told my father I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, and he just stopped at the word lawyer. Like, are you a terrible person? Because he was more about the rights of the workers and anti-capitalist, very wild engineer at this time, politically wild, like all about liberation theology and Bob Marley and the Wailers and Peter Tosh and Exodus and all of that. So didn't quite fit. Social issue documentarian, kind of. I worked in production for a long time, and I still do. We came to be here rather than Costa Rica, which is why I think it's an assignment. And this is not per se.
I don't know if I've heard the word assignment. Like, you said call, and then you said / assignment. How do you define an assignment?
I don't know. I think it defines you. It defines me, because I love it here. It's wonderful and beautiful, and there's a purpose. And at the same time, I know I'm here now, and it's not my home.
Oh, wow.
So the vision is to make this a holistic retreat space where people come together to do things like this, and to stay and do maybe detoxing, juicing, meditation, yoga, learning about agriculture. And it has a B&B type feel, and also is agriculturally productive, using principles of permaculture, taking care of the land and the water, and having regenerative closed loop systems in action.
Okay, regenerate. Oh, so many words, right? And you've already started that, right? Do you have
Yes.
hydroponic?
We have aquaponics,
aquaponics,
which is closed loop for fish and vegetables.
And what does closed loop mean for those of us that are unsophisticated in these?
Closed loop means you don't have to put very many, if any, inputs into a system to make it work.
Okay.
So you can try to close the loop on a farm, for example, by creating your own fertilizers,
Okay.
by using a draft horse instead of a tractor, and then growing the food that you feed to the horse on the farm. All of the ways that you can look at to do things on the farm. When we need bamboo stakes for the field, we cut them from the bamboo trees and process them. So that's the more you can close the loops, even with a house, with water, all of the gray water from brushing our teeth, well, maybe not brushing the teeth, probably brushing the teeth, washing the dishes, doing the laundry, can then be recycled to do other things like water the plants in the landscape versus getting flushed away into either a sewer system or septic system, and then toilet processes, other things. There are great podcasts on that topic too, of composting toilets and all different things. But that where you're from cradle to grave and back again is the closed loop with as few inputs as possible, which is, we live in the real world, so you just do what you do. And
Yeah. So how did you find your way to this assignment, like in terms of the passion you have for it?
I didn't. I thought that the passion was making social issue documentaries, and I became a single mom at 26 years old, and I started working in production, traveled around the Caribbean on production jobs for about a year, and saw a lot of places like this, but more upscale, and that was what we did the productions for.
Yeah.
And after about a year of that and not seeing my son too much, I got a job with the city of Miami Beach as a full-time, like a grown-up job, and that was
a grown-up job.
Yeah, that was great. And I didn't go to film school for graduate school as a result of all of these things, and I just would sit all the time at my desk or out in the field, and these were great jobs, like
Right.
so much fun and stable, and they have their ups and downs, but good jobs. I knew I wanted to have a sustainable community farm.
Yeah, it was there.
It was there. My girlfriend owned this house.
Okay.
And this house. She bought them with her husband in around 2005. And so she lived in this one with her family and would rent this one out. So in the summer of 2010, we just wanted to get out of Miami for the summer. I could work from home production-wise at this time, and my husband the economy was weird, 2010. Yeah. So we came here thinking we'd stay for the summer. It looked completely different. It was all wildly overgrown, no greenhouse, you couldn't even think that there was anything back here but like brush and jungle and maybe snakes and a bear or something, The bears maybe, I don't know, I haven't seen any bears here, but yeah, so we found out it was in short sale and bought the property and took a chance. And the only reason Oviedo was, going from doing production and interviewing people like Shaquille O'Neal and Emilio Estefan and heads of companies and international diplomats and things like that, to Oviedo was like, there was no reason for me to do that with the family, except that there was this calling to have a farm. Like, if I was just living here in this little house, it was kind of not that comfortable. It was broken down with my family, and just from Miami, where our entertainment was to go to the ocean. It was 5 minutes away, health food stores everywhere, yoga studios everywhere, eclectic community everywhere, art everywhere. And so it was like, start the farm, go hard or go home.
Go hard or go home. That's true, right?
Yes.
Okay, so 5 years?
5 years.
5 years. So
we started the farm in 2011 officially.
So tell us a little bit about the inflection points, like the big, the points where you've had either divine ahas or face plants.
The first inflection point, I think, was just belief being crystal, going from liquid to crystallizing somehow. Like, okay, this is it, and seeing it.
Now tell us about that. From the idea of being in your head to
okay, this is
buying
what
the
we're
land.
doing. Well, we were living here before we bought it. It took a while to get that short sale through, and then I started going to Seminole County farmer agricultural extension office workshops, and there was a farmer who was talking, Jonathan, who you've maybe met a time or two, and I connected with him and I said, hey, I want to start a farm, and so can you help? And we can make money because we can do a CSA. Because I had to tell him, I couldn't just tell him I have this dream and I want to farm. So the CSA became a way to say there is a revenue stream. Community supported agriculture.
Yes, and I'm one of the CSA clients. I get to pick up my fresh produce every Thursday.
Yay! So we connected right there. A lot of people that I'm around, I feel in some way that they're family, and I tell him he's kind of like my stepbrother cousin.
I want to be a farmer, like, I can't imagine exactly what the response was, because I mean, you're a beautiful woman and smart, intelligent, but I'm just wondering, like, what people, like, what was the, how did people treat you?
They treat me fine. I think that they maybe underestimate me at first. You know?
At first, only at first. They don't now.
Maybe it takes a minute. I just keep walking through it and being open to whatever experiences and working with myself not to come to a certain perception with a harsh judgment of someone else, because it is being a woman in agriculture in the South is interesting and has been interesting all along, and I find that I've developed really clear parameters that I have no problem articulating around what the vibe is on the farm. How we speak, what words we use when we're talking about something, and what's just not done or acceptable. And yeah.
So okay, so you walk into that meeting and you meet Jonathan and you say, I'm going to start a farm.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then, I mean, I had all the background on the CSA model and on organic farming. He wasn't per se an organic farmer, but he's limited. He's just more of a hardcore farming for market and pragmatism.
Right.
So I'd researched a lot. I mean, you can learn anything now, so researched a lot about organic farming and kind of convinced him, and we were splitting any revenue 50-50.
Okay.
And he came over, he had an old tractor. This field hadn't been touched in probably years upon years. Back in the day, all this land is cleared all the way to Redbug.
Okay.
Is a celery farm. It was celery farms, was farmed together probably. So there are old, beautiful artisan drainage structures and different things that are in various stages of disrepair under the ground. So Jonathan started mowing it with his tractor, with the bush hog, and within the first 20 minutes, we have video footage of it somewhere, within the first 20 minutes got stuck in a hole, a big hole in the field, and that's it. I learned a lot about row cropping from him, and then I read and learn and study a lot, and just connecting with the plants and the way they grow goes a long way. And then there's so many aspects of it, from business. Farming is not easy.
Right.
Entrepreneurship's not easy. Farming is not easy. And then now my husband is pretty much on board with me full time, so that's a whole new twist that happened in the past since the beginning of the summer.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so what's the next inflection? You have to buy the property, you have to learn how to farm, and then how to figure out how to put a business model under it.
Yeah. Crazy faith, a lot of sweat equity, a lot of sacrifice in terms of time, where my small children, who are now 14 and 7, could only spend so much time pulling weeds.
Yeah.
And so my younger one got to watch a lot of those fast cut crazy Netflix shows like Jimmy Neutron and other things.
While you were planting?
Fry the brain.
Yeah.
I mean, one night we were delivering vegetables, because we used to do that, and I was so clean in Miami in terms of the way I ate. There was none of this occasional Panera bread nonsense. And we were in the car eating pizza, delivering vegetables to Kissimmee the night before Thanksgiving. So there was a lot of that, but that was I think I'm going to be 40 in February, so maybe in my early 30s, it's 2011, I was 30, I think I turned 34 when we moved here, so around 35 I just had this crazy energy, and it didn't matter that I wasn't making money, it was just like, it's happening, the business model worked, the revenue wasn't there, and we just made it happen. The second year, Jonathan wasn't really with me. Now he works for me sometimes.
Yeah.
And once you start to dive into it, you know, the plants want to work with you too. There's something ephemeral there that is just special. And so each year the field gets better and better. Really concentrating on soil. And then a big inflection point was definitely raising money, attracting a funder.
Okay, so you have gone out and raised some money.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned from that?
It's really challenging to have, when the passion and the action comes before the plan, which is normal with passion.
Passion and action before the plan.
Yes. So I think sometimes, I mean, there's maybe that divine blueprint, but the passion and the action comes first.
We're here at the Dear Rockstar podcast and interviews with Maya. And we're sitting in the middle of her beautiful organic farm, Maya Papaya Organic Farm in Oviedo, Orlando. Oviedo, Florida. It's not Oviedo, Orlando.
AKA North Orlando.
North Orlando. And we're talking about, you've raised some capital for your vision, and you were sharing a little bit about that journey.
So that's sort of serendipitous as well, I think. There's a group called Simple Living Institute, and Tia Silvasi and her then husband Terry Meir started this on 5 acres off the Econ River.
Wow.
And maybe in 2009 they were featured in the Oprah magazine, and they're just having the Simple Living Institute, not doing farming like this,
Okay.
teaching people about gardening, about permaculture. And now I believe she's studying agriculture in Hawaii, and he's living and working and teaching permaculture at a place called Sustainable Cashy in Sebastian, Florida.
Okay.
So they, with their permaculture trainings, they did permaculture design certificates, and they asked us through a woman named Natasha, connected Tia and I, and we became a project. The farm became a project for their PDC
For the Simple Living.
students.
Okay.
For the Simple Living Institute. And through meeting with them at the farm numerous times and sharing my vision, they, as their course project, put together a vision plan.
Okay.
Maybe a 20-page PDF with pictures and articulating it as a permaculture farm. So we shared that. We're just going along, sometimes on fumes and steam.
Talking about money.
Yeah, money.
Right,
money,
like
labor,
not enough money,
not
lots
enough
of
money,
work.
lots of work, so much work, not enough money. Other jobs, kids, you know.
Yeah, financing it through other jobs, so you have the cash flow for the dream.
Occasionally borrowing money once or twice from my parents, my husband's parents. When I say begging, anytime I would see dirt that was being excavated, I'd quickly meet the foreman of the job and make sure it was clean dirt.
I'm begging for this dirt.
Yes, yes. So we got a lot. It's very low lying out there, but Chapman Road was expanded.
Yeah.
Same type of muck soil that we have, this beautiful black soil. We got about 60 truckloads of it at that time, but free. But spreading it is not free.
Yeah.
So we have this beautiful PDF vision for Maya Papaya Yoga Farm, and my husband has a good network.
Yeah.
And happened to share it with one of his college mates and friends, and he initially loaned us money, $100,000.
Yeah.
And then out of the blue, probably a year later, called and said, would you like to roll that loan over into an investment share, and I have some more money for you.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's easy to spend money in farming.
Yeah.
It's easy
Right?
to spend money. So
So the challenge has been what? What's been your biggest challenge here?
a a learning curve for farming. There are so many aspects of it with ordering and pest management and fertility management and soil management and water management and irrigation and harvest management and keeping produce cold and then getting it in the hands of the buyer. So we don't market a lot. Marketing has been a weakness, not because we can't, just because it hasn't floated to the top of the to-do list.
The priorities.
Of the priorities.
And then figuring out, like, for those of us that, you know, we're not as involved in the local food movement as you are, but there's some real challenges with making money in this industry, right?
Yes. Food is incredibly, like this shirt being $1, food is incredibly devalued.
Talking about the challenges of moving, you know, from the idea and you start living out the vision, but then there's this reality of money and resources and learning curves. Talking about some of the biggest learnings you've had as a starter and a visionary, like, because this is your call, like you said, or your assignment. It still doesn't mean it's easy.
Right. No. You have to embrace the sacrifice, I think, or I find, or I've learned that there's a beauty in the sacrifice and to constantly connect to the parts of it that I love.
And a beauty in the sacrifice. That's powerful, right?
Yes. And then the parts that you love are the parts that are coming through anyway. And so learning to love it all and have faith that if you really set, any of us, we set our minds to something and we set our logic to it and our nonlinear intuition and everything else, you just put one foot in front of the next, like progress is normal.
Wow. So what's your nonlinear intuition? Talk to me about that part. Is the spiritual part for you?
Oh.
How does that work?
That's
you said faith, and I think that's a huge part of the starter or the entrepreneur's journey, but nobody talks about it.
I think so. I think faith, you know, someone said to me once, I didn't get it from the Bible as much because I wasn't raised with the Bible really, the faith of a mustard seed can move mountains. And it's true. You just plant that deeply, and if you believe in something and it's working for you, and just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not working.
Oh, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not working, right?
Right. And continuing, I think, having the faith, holding the space, knowing that sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable, pushing through that, and then not pushing through it. If you don't want to push through it, then you know, take what you've learned and go in another direction. However, I have learned that because I see this as an isness rather than a business.
An isness. What's an isness? Gosh, you're so tweetable. Like, I just want to have my phone and be tweeting her, right? Like, or something, sharing her on Instagram. What is that?
An isness.
An isness, not a business.
Not a business, an isness. That's not my original term by far. One of the people from the permaculture certificate, who's a delightful soul, you know, it was on the plan when Maya Papaya is open for isness, and it just really resonated for me.
Open for isness, yes.
Because business is too narrow for, and being entrepreneurially minded, you can think of things all the time. So I love this, for example.
I love that. I want it.
Right.
I'm trying not to covet it.
We can trade. So it came from Guatemala. A dear friend of mine brought it, and he's actually flying back to Guatemala today. I've had it for 10 years and goes everywhere with me. And I put it down on my yoga mat. I'm like, ooh, that's like a yogi toe. So you can always think of a simple one-step A to B sort of business model. That's not hard for us. And
right.
Okay, so
yeah, the problem that's hard for us is shutting that off.
Yes.
Focusing on what we've got ourselves up to our waist in.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. And so I think I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, isness. Trying to contextualize that a bit more, and somebody introduced me to the concept of the Long Run Foundation, and it's a group of conservationists and retreat space owners or stewards that operate on the principles of not just commerce, it's commerce, conservation, community, community and culture.
Wow, the 4 C's. Commerce,
conservation, community, culture, and I would add creativity in there, because when we're in our creation, we're in our divine flow. So that gives us a way to articulate it to an investor to say, well, if you're looking for this high, quick dollar, we're not that. However, we're true to our core. So the lesson for me has been stick to it, even if it's hard, and get better at it rather than pivoting. Oh, yoga doesn't make a lot of money yet because the yoga community needs to grow. We're not going to pivot. We'll look at other ways to approach it. Growing vegetables, even though it's not wildly profitable right now, it's wildly important to me, and it's so foundational to what's here.
It might not be wildly profitable, but it might be wildly important that you figure it out.
Yeah. So you figure it out, and then having the faith to put yourself out there. I know so many people now that they're getting traction with their dreams, and that's all we need, because you get traction, and you go.
Yeah, traction and then value traction, right? So right now, what's the next steps for you? What's the next things you want to manifest here at Maya Papaya?
So we're manifesting $5 million. That would be in the right form. I have no desire particularly, although my husband and I make a good team in this regard. I want to manifest it and sort of show improve improvements, because I don't want any investor. My ideal scenario would be our investor would finish that
A strategical investor.
Strategic, yep. And if, as we work towards that, finding smaller investors who will come in amounts that are not, our investor right now lets us do what we do, and we keep him updated, and that's great. Smaller investors who are interested in our projects, if they came in with 50,000 or 30,000, those keep the wheels churning while we expand on a restaurant CSA to start reaching more chefs, to start reaching more mom and pop groceries, more health food stores, because our vegetable game has gotten really good.
Right.
So that's next, is to be able to show that upward path of our revenue streams.
Okay.
And to do things to scale. So maybe $5 million and boom, Insta retreat space.
So seeing this as a retreat, eco retreat
and learning center, yoga, meditation, juice cleansing, all of that, community coming together, events. It doesn't take, we can do it to scale intelligently without having to have that investment right away either. And that seems to be in alignment with the organic farming anyway. So it's to really just start to embody that which I want to create, to keep continuing to embody that. And I still look at other revenue streams, media, keeping it all going. And now I need to also settle into, my kids need a bit more attention.
Yeah, right? The challenges of stewarding, I don't think it's ever balanced, but stewarding the commitments and the priorities. So it seems to me you keep a pretty good head on your shoulders in terms of what you value. So your top values are what for yourself and your life?
Authenticity, honestly, in terms of channeling into my healthiest, well-minded bit of my own incarnation, and even the bad parts, but that I can actually legitimately look at myself, because we're mirrors, then I am a reflection to others. And at the same time, in the more tangible sense, to grow the isness, to grow the Maya Papaya brand, which the name has worked well. Frankly, sometimes I'm just I don't want to even hear it anymore. So, and as we grow the brand over a few different areas in the organic food sphere, we formed a nonprofit called SEED, Sacred Ecological and Agricultural Design, which will be to facilitate learning programs, to help others to do the same, kind of a consultancy,
right,
and bringing people and youth groups into systems like these who wouldn't necessarily have exposure otherwise.
Yeah. We were talking about that earlier today, this whole discovery experience. I've never had an experience with permaculture, right? Or I've never had experience where I really get my hands in the soil,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
it is transformative. And when you're in a place that can support that, it's nice. I see children just, they light up, they blossom.
Flourish.
And then the brand would fuel revenue. It would be an income stream for seed, because proceeds from the brand, looking down the line, say it's Maya Papaya Hemp Organic Biodynamic Cannabis Wine or something, you know, something that really will get that economic engine turning.
Yep.
And then it goes to seed.
So you have this hybrid social venture model where you will have economic engines
Yes.
that will finance the social and the impact work
Yes.
and the transformation work you want to do in the community.
Yes.
So what would you tell your younger starter self? Like now, like you're sitting in this place of like, okay, it's starting to happen. It's not been without sacrifice. What is advice you'd give to your younger self wanting to start something?
I am. I have to think about that one. What about you?
My advice is like to my younger self would have been, it's okay not to have all the answers. Instead of stressing out about needing to know, ask a question. Instead of talking, listen.
Yes.
Just make life all about learning, and you're not going to have any issues.
Yes.
But if you make it about knowing, it's going to be a tug of war forever. I mean, that's really the lesson that I wish I wouldn't have learned so painfully. Right? Because you're going to learn the lesson, and it depends on like, right? So that ego part of me, or like that need to know, the insecurity. I think like when we need to have all the answers, it's really an insecurity. So later in life, we look back and go, why wasn't I more open? Why wasn't I asking more questions?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. That's, yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's something for me I've learned to do and benefited from so much as I have just moved forward in life and walked through. So it's hard to say, because, you know, all of the negatives put us right where we are. So
They're perfect.
they're perfect in that way.
So what are your spiritual disciplines that keep you
Grounded. Yoga, definitely. And when I'm not practicing, so yoga pretty much I started practicing maybe 14 years ago. And used to have a much stronger practice than now. I went to yoga teacher training in 2005.
Okay.
My son was always in the yoga studio with me, my older son, with his little portable DVD player and his Aladdin movie. You know?
His mom was in Downward Dog.
Yes, on Miami Beach in Espanola Way. So the definitely yoga, trying to have more of a pure diet and letting it go when it's not, but paying attention to those signs and signals. So the more chlorophyll that I'm eating or juicing, the better I feel. I've come to terms with myself as a bit of an omnivore, at least for now. Sometimes I just need that little bit of, at least that's what I tell myself. And then other times I simply don't, and I don't eat that much animal.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other conversation, I'm sure. Meditation when I can. I don't meditate regularly. I try to make everything a meditation in some way. When I'm on the farm, I'm connecting with the plants.
Like
I'm
a walking
connecting
meditation.
with my feet. Yeah. And I talk to my ancestors a lot, and to trees and plants a lot.
Yeah.
Hey.
And I love, there's no shortage of animals out here.
No.
There's no shortage of beauty out here. So what keeps you inspired?
Nature, light, just light really keeps me inspired, and color, and finding myself in the flow where I have words that I feel are beautiful to connect with my children or with my husband or with people that I love, being connected to those that I love in really present ways. And the farm keeps me inspired. I just like many days there's nothing I want more than to just be amongst the plants.
Wow. It's so inspiring for us to be in your sacred space today with a lot of different starters, but also just to see you as a really strong visionary woman and the incredible beauty that like is coming because of you and your husband's courageous step out. So thank you for the beauty of this place and for just being such a great role model of a starter.
We're mirrors.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever grown anything that has lived, but I cultivate other soil.
Exactly.
Right?
It's all cultivation. It's all. Yep.
I'm trying to work on souls. You're working on soil, right? But it's still cultivation.
Feels like the same thing.
Right? It is. That's why we have to work together. So
yes.
Thank you so much, Maya, for
Thank
being
you.
where you're at. And if you're ever near Oviedo, you have to come to Maya Papaya Organic Farm and get online and check it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.